Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today, well, we're going to go through a lesson in how to give reels a second chance because they failed through what I call a grease-choked reel. And, well, that condition occurs when, when reels are left in storage or left unused for quite some time. And then you want to take them fishing, you find out that you can't turn the reel. This is an example of one very, very hard to turn. And I'm using a lot of effort here to try and do that, but the reel just is sluggish, and a lot of folks will think, well, something's broken in the reel, and you know, it's time to go for another one. Not the case. A lot of times these have just suffered from the grease drying out inside of them. That's what's caused them to bog down, and we're going to give you an internal look at that. And well, how to solve it. That was a Mitchell 300. Here's a Shakespeare Royal Maroon. It's the 2062. Same idea. So how does it occur? Well, it occurs because the reel sits for a while, and it usually sits in a warm or hot environment. So think of it if you're kind of in the Northeast and you have the 4 seasons, maybe during the off season you've stored these in a basement near a furnace. Well, that furnace is going to provide the dry heat that's going to cause that to evaporate the greases and oils. And well, in the spring you may grab it, and this is what you'll kind of be set with. This one is a little bit less, but it's still got the issues there. And it doesn't just happen with old reels. I mean, the stories with these reels could be, geez, I remember my father's reels, and I haven't fished them in 20 years. Well, that'll certainly dry out the greases and oils in it. But it happens with relatively modern reels as well. This is an Abu Cardinal. It's the same thing. It's moving better, but it's dry. So let's give you that look inside, and then we'll tell you what to do in terms of servicing this to get it back to going as it is. Let's pick one that's really struggling here, and let's just take the side plate off and spend a minute on that. Well, if you like these types of videos, if you like to learn how to diagnose what the issue is, determine if you can give reels a second chance simply by, well, kind of cranking them and listening to them and so on, then I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. My channel works on all kinds of reels, deals with all kinds of fishing reel issues, and, well, you'll probably find a video in there that you like. And subscribing to it, and that notification button will let you know when I'm posting, so that well, you can make a decision as to whether you want to watch that reel or not. The Mitchells only come with 3 case screws. I'm going to remove this one because my guess is that the grease will be behind the main gear as well. I'm going to take that handle off and we'll show you. Well, this is the exact opposite, but it's the same cause. There's no grease or oil in this reel. That's because it's all evaporated. And if it evaporates, well, you're metal on metal, and that's just going to be a very hard and sluggish way to kind of go through. I can feel it here. Let's take this off for a moment. The anti-reverse is on. I want to move that dog out of the way. We'll just pull these 3 gears. I can feel it right on the post. You can't even get this gear off, which is one of the reasons why it's so hard to turn. And this is what you'll see. You'll see the residuals behind here. I imagine it's the same thing on the main gear. Yeah, that's all dried grease. You can see the raised ridge here. And every time this back end of this gear runs on that that old grease, well, it just, well, I call it getting choked, but it just will not perform well because of that. Well, how do you deal with it? You deal with it with, well, a lot of elbow grease, if you will. I'm going to put that back for now. We're going to move to the other one. When you get to the point where you have that as an issue, you want to thin that grease out, remove all the old greases, and then do your best to restore the reel with fresh greases and lube, and that should help you to resolve the problem. Well, we've got a problem here with the screw. I didn't have the right blade, and it's always important to have the right blade as you go about disassembling and reinstalling the screws and the like. If you don't, you run the risk of butterflying these screws, and you'll well, you won't be able to put them back in or take them out the next time. All right, let's take a look at what's going on in this one. Almost identical. I can see, it may be difficult to see on your end, but I can see the thick buildup of the greases here and in this pinion gear. That pinion gear should be nice and bright and silver, and well, it's the same thing. You can see how it's turning, and it's just got a real hard turn to it. This is kind of really leveraging it, and not only does it get in the gear teeth, but it's dried on the axle shaft as well. Let me just show you. This is our axle shaft here. It's dried, and that prevents it from easily going up and down. A good cleaning, again, we'll use some penetrating oil. We'll use a lot of our brushes and the like, and we will try our best to restore that. Well, again, one more time, let's do that one on a rather modern reel now, at least by comparison. This one is an Abu Garcia. It's a Cardinal AG 3F, the 3 meaning it's about a 30 size reel. And again, it's just got an issue here with the performance. We're going to do this one a little bit differently because, well, it needs to be done a little bit differently. A lot of times you're going to find that you have the dried grease simply by looking at the reel. And here's 2 examples. You're going to notice the evaporation of the grease on the threads of the screws. This is where the main gear comes through the housing. And a lot of times you're going to recognize that you have a seam on the case where that grease has weeped out, if you will, or leaked out. And that's almost always an indication that it's the problem with the greases and the oils having evaporated. We're going to try and take the spool off of this one. While I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting a video. And while you can determine if it's a video you want to see. Again, we see the greases coming out of the top end of this. I'm going to remove that little click ratchet and shim washer. This one has a case that's buried underneath, so we have to remove the rotor to get to that. And that's done by removing the set screw that holds that in place. And with that screw removed, we'll take a look for a 10mm wrench. This one comes off in a counterclockwise or clockwise manner. It's what they call reverse threaded. I'm just putting these on my desk right now because we will reinstall these right away. But again, we wanted to show you. Good indication that the grease is bad is that you've opened that up and you see it. Same thing here. You're seeing the greases have come out of the case. We can remove our handle. Now there's 4 screws to the body to kind of reveal just what's going on with this reel. I'm going to remove the bump stop first. At the 4 screws. Now when you take these screws out, please note if they're longer or shorter than the others. That happens frequently with reel manufacturers. Sometimes the case is thin on one side, it's thicker on the other side, and so one side will use a short screw, another one will use a long screw. Sometimes they're differentiated by the slot in the screw. Some will be a flat-headed or straight slot, and some will be a Phillips head slot. Some will be thicker or thinner or the like, so it's always a good practice to take these out, put them on the desk, and just make sure that they're all the same size. So this can happen in a modern reel as well as a vintage reel. We talked a little bit about why the vintage reel, right? It may have been a family member's, your dad's or somebody's, and maybe it's, they stopped fishing. It's been sitting in a closet in a rafter or wherever it may have been stored for a while. And that'll certainly facilitate the grease drying out. But the majority of the time, it's just a heat source that's doing it. And that could be a hull of a boat in the summertime if it's not being used. All right, those 4 screws are the same. Again, at the risk of losing some of these, I'm usually using a parts tray, but for illustration purposes, I've been trying to just get to as many reels as possible. Let's take this off then. And again, you can see the effect of this. This reel has not been serviced. We've got dried grease and possibly dried oils on the side. That may have resulted in a bad burring. This is another advertisement for servicing on a regular basis. Yeah, that burring is no good. You can see whatever the metal is that this has been made of, well, it's got a lot of dried grease hanging on the outside. I don't even know if this one can come out without removing the other piece. And these reels, unfortunately, the price point on these reels is usually that someone has decided that it's cheaper to go buy another reel than it is to keep one serviced. And that's why at Second Chance Tackle we try to show you how to do this, so that even if the reel is relatively inexpensive, you can keep it fishing for a long time to come. Another example of the dried grease. It's on the axle shaft. It's all brown. It kind of looks like bad engine oil, right? All right, one more time here. We're going to pull our crosswind block, pull our main gear, and there you go. There's the rest of it. So the main gear is just loaded with it, and that's what's going to lead to poor performance. Well, kind of an interesting little aside here as I started to get involved with these. Again, dried on the side here. And I thought I would just share that with you. What I'm going to do now is kind of what I recommend doing for all of the issues with the dried grease. I'm going to use a penetrating oil. I'm going to soak the case. In this case, I'm using WD-40, but it can be any penetrating oil. I'm going to knock the burring out of this one. I'm going to try and find a replacement burring, clean up the rest of this case, and hopefully we'll be able to give this one a second chance. Well, there's your bad burring. That looks like a relatively standard fishing reel burring there, so I should have one of those laying around. And well, we'll come back and we'll show you the final results of this after it's been cleaned, and wrap this up. Okay, that took some time, a lot of elbow grease, but it'll be worth it in the end. We had to take everything out, including our pinion gear. We've cleaned the top of the case, the anti-reverse, the bottom of the case. We found that replacement bearing. We got the bushing that was, well, it was trapped with old grease on the stud of the main gear. Got that bushing out, and then we took care to clean the main gear here. And well, let's put it back together, see how we did. Just wipe down that axle. All right, I'm going to start by putting that pinion gear assembly back in. We want to re-grease that. So grease isn't bad, grease is good, but dried grease is not good. And if you've got a reel that's been sitting a while, best efforts would be to get in there and clean it up before you attempt to take it fishing this upcoming season. All right, this is going to come in. There's an anti-reverse there. The collar is on the pinion gear. Just seat this in. Turn it, make sure that it's turning well. We have a cap with the bearing. I've cleaned that bearing, but did that off camera, so let's show you what we can do here. Put some oil in there. That bearing is a shielded but not a sealed bearing. That carrier goes over the post to seat the bearing and hold in that anti-reverse. So far I'm getting lucky with leaving these parts on my bench. It's something I do not recommend doing, but because we had all of those reels opened at various stages, I guess I ran out of space. Okay, one more here. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you've got a problem with the reel you're trying to diagnose and just can't quite figure it out, then I would encourage you to well, leave that question in the comment section. I will try to answer that for you. We've got a oscillation gear here. Yeah, I know. Why am I not wearing my glove? Well, I didn't think I was going to get this far. And I guess I just declared myself a little too lazy to go get it right now. All right. Crosswind block next. This is going to provide the oscillation. It seats over the stud in the case here. And this is another good example. Regardless of what the price of a reel is, you do need to maintain that reel if you have any hopes of it treating you well while you're fishing. Alright, we've cleaned the back of the main gear that was loaded with old grease. Want to get a good amount of grease into the teeth. Also want to get grease onto the smaller cog on the back that drives your oscillation gear, and get some grease back into the point that goes into that plastic side case bushing. We can reinstall the main gear now. And once you have that seated, we can bring the axle shaft down. Light coating of grease onto the axle shaft. So you don't have to wait for a reel to completely freeze up to realize that it's bad grease and that you need to service it. And of course, if you do wait for it to freeze up, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to unlock that. You need to center the hole here to accept the tie-down screw for that crosswind block axle shaft assembly. The potting on the, or pock marking on that main gear is just that. It's cosmetic, you can't do much about it. There's a washer that goes onto the main gear next. And then here's my replacement bearing. Just happened to be lucky that it was a standard size fishing reel bearing. I don't even think that's new. I think that one probably came off of a reel that broke. Alright, side plate goes on next. And it might be a little tough getting that bearing seated. Let's try and do it the other way then. Let's take the bearing out, seat it in this way. That on. Then once you put that on, make sure you have a nice tight case all the way around. With the nice tight case and the bearing replaced, get the 4 screws. We know they're all the same, so it doesn't matter what direction they go in. These are Phillips head screws again. Let's go ahead and put that back in. We have our freshwater season just opening up now. I'm sure we're going to find somebody who can use this reel. Take a kid fishing, perhaps. But we're going to get this one out there and give it a second chance. Okay, and I kind of alternate the pattern in which I put them in. I want to go high and low, and then come back up high on the other side. That'll keep the equal torsion on this. We got into this with a conversation about dried grease. I can tell you that dried grease is one of the best ways that you can buy a cheap reel, or buy an inexpensive reel cheaply. And that's because a lot of owners give up on them. They don't realize what the cause is. They only realize that the reel is not performing well. They either put it on the side and just let it sit forever, or they bring it to a yard sale or a flea market or something like that. And of course, if you're testing the reel before you purchase it or make an offer on it, well, chances are they're not going to understand what it is. You're going to understand what it is because you have the knowledge to fix these things just by simply cleaning them out and taking a little time and energy. And you can make these reels run really nice. I showed you the one before, the Shakespeare Royal Marine. And honestly, I can't wait to get started on that one. That one's going to purr like there's no tomorrow when once we clean up that grease inside. All right. Remember, this is a reverse thread, so you're going to have to turn that counterclockwise to turn it on. Tighten it up. And then we have a tie-down screw here next. So these are where pictures help. We got a little sidetracked there. We had to go chase down a bearing. We had to go do some cleaning that took some time. If you weren't paying attention, well, you might find yourself in a little bit of trouble. This has got some dried salts or something on it. I'm going to use the penetrating oil on the seams of the bail and on the line roller. Work that in. It seems to be working fine. Just two more pieces or a few more pieces here. We have the click ratchet for the noisemaker on the spool, and even this one's got the dried grease that's come through it. So let's get that on. The red washer up top is a spool height adjuster. And put the spool on next. For simplicity's sake, so I'm not going to service the drag washer, but the drag washer should be serviced. But again, this is a conversation about bad greases and oils in the reel. So let's put this back on. We'll give it a test. We'll see how we did. This one should, with the fresh greases and oils, work nicely. Okay, so what did we do? We took the reel apart. We noticed that there was a lot of dried grease, and that was the cause of the issue. Notice in one case the bearing had frozen, and as a result of that, what we did was we cleaned everything up, we re-oiled, re-greased, and replaced that bearing. Let's see how we did. Well, there you go, nice and smooth and easy. Wow, just as I expected. And how do we do on the bail flip? There you go. Oh, I'm catching it right on the high spot. There you go. All right, well, that's it. That's a little lesson in why fishing reels fail because of dried grease, and how to give them a second chance. I hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.